Hi, Jen. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
I'm so delighted to have you here. I think you're doing really beautiful work, and I'm excited to unpack your life story and the work that you're doing with our listening audience. I always give my guests the opportunity to introduce themselves to the watching and listening audience in their own words, just like a brief explanation of who you are, because we'll summarize your whole episode in post production.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Jen Mitchell. I have been a family law attorney for 18 years. And the first 9, I was in the courtroom as a litigation attorney. And then the last 9, I've been out of court as a mediator and as an intuitive coach, helping guide couples through divorce with love. And it really has paralleled my own journey of spirituality and living my most authentic self.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think it's so necessary, this work that you're doing. So my intention of starting this podcast years ago was to basically provide a community for people who were dealing with the intersection of healing, personal development, and spirituality. So I'm really curious about everybody's spiritual, religious upbringing, or if they have nothing at all, and then where they anchor themselves as an adult, and like what did they find along their journey into adulthood. And if you have nothing at all, that's fine too.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. I was raised, I'm from Chicago. So I
Hmm.
was raised in an Irish Catholic family, and it wasn't super traditional. It was more, we went to church on Easter and on Christmas, and we were always there late, standing in the back. But it was very much that, there wasn't any spirituality. There wasn't a lot of even individuality. It was just kind of a different way of looking at things. And then I had 3 children in 39 months. And when that happened, it was like bam, bam, bam.
Wow.
2014 is when I started my own spiritual path of exploring a different way to look at life and just different ways of being. And now it's just, I'm fully in the rabbit hole of exploration of what we're doing here and shining my light and helping make this world a better place, which is
Yeah.
totally aligned with the work that you are doing. I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing and to have this space to share so people
Yeah.
can resonate with it and hopefully, can plant little seeds for people to explore their own path as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really interesting where I think if we do take a non-religious spiritual pathway, it really just lends itself to a lot of expansion and creativity in how we sort of react and interact with the world and how we do business. And I think you're a perfect example of that. So I really want to get into the work that you're doing here in this next question. So like you mentioned, you're a lawyer. One of the things that you talk about in the work that you're doing is doing, taking a conscious approach to decoupling a family. And I was curious as to like how did you get to that point in your professional career to take a step back and say, I want to take a more gentle and mindful approach to basically ending people's relationships, which I think can be so heavy. It's so hard. It's complicated. It's never easy. There's so much baggage. Like, please tell me
There's
how,
so
yeah,
much.
please tell me where you got to that, how you got to that point.
So much. Yeah, thank you. I was a litigation attorney for 9 years, and it was the same time when my own spiritual awakening happened. My children, that's what changed everything for me. I had kids, and once they came into my life, as we all know, our children are our greatest teachers that we are gifted, and they just showed me that the work that I was doing as a family law litigation attorney in the courtroom was actually destroying children, and it was destroying families, and it was destroying people. And I just felt, it was June of 2014. I was in my living room, and I just felt the heaviness of everything that I was doing and just that ripple effect of destructiveness that I was causing, not just to the
Mhm.
families and the children, but also just to the world. Like all the people going through a litigated divorce talk about it to all their friends, and it's all really low vibrational and really heavy, and it doesn't do anything positive. And at that moment, I still remember, and this was the first time I think that I actually heard, when you receive a download. And I wasn't super familiar with it. But a voice came to me and said, there has to be a better way to do this. And so the next week, I just referred all of my litigation cases out and decided that I wasn't going to do that anymore. I didn't want that to be my legacy that my children
Yeah.
saw, their mom doing and just being stressed and being part of that really tight system that is just really heavy. There's no love in that system. There's so many rules. There's so much fighting. And then I took a course to be a holistic health and wellness coach. And so I thought maybe I would change my career. I was like, maybe I'll be a coach. And then when I was doing that course, I realized, oh my gosh, I think I can incorporate some of these principles into the divorce journey. And I was already a mediator, but at that point, my caseload was probably like 95% litigation, 5% mediation. And I remember all of my fellow litigation attorneys, I was talking to them leading up to it. And I was like, you know what? I really like mediation. I just like that space of, we can connect with one another. I can work with both people. It's not so contentious. And all of them said the same thing. Jen, you cannot have a standalone mediation family practice. You need to have litigation. It's the bread and butter. And I was like, you know what? I reject that. I don't think that that's true. I think
I
maybe
love
that's
that.
true for you or for other people, but I don't think that it's true. And that's when it all started, was 2014. That's when Solace was birthed. And I started this new approach with couples of mindfulness, and I used to gift them like an essential oil spray or some bath salts or a soap, like something to help them. And now it's just over the last 10 years, it's progressed to this space that is just so beautiful and so amazing. And of course, as you know, being an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
our businesses, I think, are a direct reflection of ourselves. And so I've also, in the last 10 years, really become very deep in my spiritual practice, where it's now just a way of being. It's a faith and a belief and a trust that it is this way, that my life is magical. And as you know this too, it's a practice and it's a really deep commitment. And I bring that into the mediation space, which is amazing. It's amazing to feel the two other people who are in the Zoom space, like, connect to these different words that we use and these different ways that we approach our life and ways that we see life. And it's been a really amazing journey. It's been beautiful. I'm really
Yeah.
grateful for all of it.
I love also kind of the layers of rebirth that are embedded in that experience and of itself. And then you were actually going through birth at the same time. And I think it's such a beautiful and interesting idea to think like everyone was telling you not to do this thing, but you intuitively understood that there was some space here where you could carve it out for yourself and for other people and think of a new and an innovative way to approach this. Like, and I just think like I feel like that's the power and that's the beauty of the feminine and her own power. Like that's what she does. She's constantly innovating and creating, and it's really beautiful. One of the things that you said that I really wanted to talk about here was removing the stigma of divorce and embracing the natural ending of a relationship. I know before we spoke offline about like I was divorced as well. My family took that as like a personal affront to them. Because nobody gets divorced in our family. It's not a thing. People will live out their lives miserable for the rest of their lives because of their cultural and religious ideas around that. But as I've gone on this journey and I've had other relationships, I have not been married again. I do think that there is something to the fact that relationships, not just romantic, are seasonal and we change and we evolve. Like I am not the same person I was. I'm 44 now. I'm not the same person I was when I was 28. The core of who I am doesn't change, but the way I view the world and the way I use my wisdom against my lived experience, it really changes who I am. Anyways, long-winded way to get you to answer
100%.
this question is how are you teaching people to let go of this like really rigid idea that we should always be together for the rest of our lives?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And that's part of when I was looking into everything that you have done, there was something in there that, I mean, there were many things in there, but there was one thing, that the lineage healing,
Yes.
and I think what I coach all my clients on is that the social consciousness, when it comes to divorce, the energies are very strong in the feelings of shame and failure. Those are two really big energies that are so powerful and so strong. And
Yeah.
so I help, coach my clients in asking themselves, like, are those really yours? Are those really your feelings that you have? Or is it the energy of this social consciousness that has come from generations of time,
Correct.
especially family lineage, telling you the way that marriage is, it's till death do you part. And there are good years and bad years, and it's a sacrifice. And it's like, but if that
And
doesn't
it's
resonate
hard.
with you, and it's hard, but if it doesn't resonate with you, if you as an individual, and it's that's why I love what I do, because when the work that I do is I'm working with people who at least one, it's usually one, has received a guidance, inner guidance that is telling that person the relationship in this capacity is no longer serving you.
Hmm.
And so I work really hard with my clients to just open space to recognize exactly what you're saying. Relationships are so fluid. They don't
Yeah.
have to be any specific way. Like, there isn't a right, a wrong, a good, or a bad. It just is what it is. And if it's not serving anymore, it's such a powerful statement of self to say that, to share that with your spouse with love and with mindfulness and respect. But just recognizing that that is one of the highest forms of self-love and respect that you can give
Yes.
yourself. And also recognizing that our journey is so much bigger than what we can in our brains comprehend it to be. And so if we can shift it, and that's what I feel the work I do, it's helping clients just shift tiny little shifts, like shifting the language that they're using. Like, we're not using shame. We're
Mhm.
not using failure. We don't have to use the word end even. Like, it doesn't have to end. It's just in this space, that cycle is complete. And then we can shift mindfully into a different space that feels good. But I don't see any reason why you can't still love your spouse that you're divorcing. It's just loving in a different way. There's so many different types of relationships and forms of love that it can be whatever you want it to be. And I think that is really the power, is when people can connect to themselves and realize, like, okay, I am my own sovereign, authentic being on my own journey and path. And this person, and that's another thing I coach my clients on. It's like, your spouse was the exact person that you needed in your
Mhm.
life path to teach you all the things that you were meant to learn, and that's
Yeah.
why it's such a strong soul contract that you enter into. I mean, that's why I talk
Hmm.
about soul contracts with my clients too. Like, before you're born, you have these soul contracts, but it's such a powerful contract, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful space to be in with another person. There's so much vulnerability and just learnings and growth. And so, yeah, just really releasing all of that and just recognizing we have one life to live. It's supposed to be joyful. So let's enjoy ourselves and let's be authentic. Let's speak our truth. And when you hear truth from another person, let's not take it as like something that's insulting, or, if someone's saying they want to get a divorce from you, it doesn't mean you're a bad person or a bad spouse. It just means that person is being guided towards something else. And that's okay. And that's beautiful. And if there's kids involved, it's like, you're in a relationship till one of you dies, and that's the hope, because then your kids have outlived you. But it's the truth of it. It's really just putting more mindfulness into the whole experience and into relationships and into
Hmm.
living, and removing all of the heaviness. It doesn't need to be here anymore. I think we've outgrown it. At least I've outgrown it. I know you've outgrown it. It feels better to be free,
It
and live in a
does.
space of just exploration and really being given not even permission, but just being given
Hmm.
that authority to live your life the way that you want to.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if you want to say something about this too. I think, like, there might be people who are coming into contact with this idea for the first time, and I think I guess I want to underline, we're not also saying that, like, when you go into this consciously, that that there isn't closure that's needed, or
Mhm.
that if there have been injuries with one another, that those things get addressed as well, right? I would imagine they
Oh,
do, right?
100%.
You're also mentoring people through the closure aspect of
Yes.
like, the resentments, or
All
the,
of
I
it.
would say, the power imbalances in relationships.
Mhm.
Like, all of that has to be sussed out as well, correct?
Yes. Oh, I love that you brought that up. Yeah. And that's what I love about the mediation space. Like when I was a litigation attorney, when couples go to court to get their divorce,
Hmm.
and it's the same Supreme Court, state Supreme Court rules, it's the same state governing law. Everything legally is the same inside of court as it is out of court. It's just done differently. And in court, when I was a litigation attorney, I did all the speaking for my client,
Mm.
and my opposing counsel spoke for their client. And so the people aren't given any opportunity to share anything with one
To
another,
like advocate for themselves.
or even, yeah, or just even share what you just brought up,
Yeah.
harms that were done during the marriage that really impacted them. They can't share. That's fueling everything. The emotion is fueling the litigation and the motions and all that. But in the mediation space, they're given that opportunity to have that type of closure where they can really speak their truth, and I always coach my clients when we meet for the mediations, tune in from separate rooms and tune in somewhere where you feel really comfortable and safe in
Hmm.
sharing your truth, because that is why they're here. And that's, I mean, they wouldn't be at Solace if their souls weren't, meant to hear whatever they're going to
Yeah.
hear and to share what they need to share to have that closure. Because I think that's a really important part of divorce too, is like you said, there's so much that goes into it. It's a shattering. It's a shattering of self. It's a shattering of belief systems that are really deeply ingrained about what marriage means and what it means to be in romantic love and what family is and what it means to be a parent. And I think when you're given that space, to really share and get it all out and get to a space where you can let go with gratitude and with love, then you're cleared of it. You don't need to, your divorce doesn't need to define you. It doesn't need to block you. It was one part of your journey. And yes, it's one of the most emotionally difficult parts of your journey. But then it's done, and that's always my intention for my clients. When you get to that one and only court date at the very end, where the judge looks at all your agreements and signs off, I want you to be free from this. It's heavy. It's a really heavy space, and it doesn't need to remain. And then when they go to court, then it's like, okay, your new life experience is starting. What are you going to do now? And you get to reinvent yourself, which is something that we're not gifted, very often in our lifetimes. But I think divorce gives you that.
Mhm. Well, that's beautiful. You're setting me up for this next question that I think it ties into that idea. I'm really curious about how, when you're doing this process with your couples, how do you empower them to work together for like the highest good and outcome for like everybody involved? Like what might be some examples of how you're allowing them to be self-empowered and to
Mhm.
think about the future in a way that is positive, empowering, calling back their own authority,
Mhm.
and then dreaming of something new. Because I think also a lot of times in any of our lives, when we're going through something, we're just so close to it.
Yes.
And if it's hard, it's really difficult for us to see what's ahead, or even that there'll be any kind of positive outcome, or even a neutral or negative. Like, I think they all are, again, I'm more Buddhist leaning, so it's like it's all of it is necessary. It's
Yeah.
all going to teach us something. But yeah, so how are you empowering people?
The soul of the practice is authenticity. And so I always coach my clients, like the key to the mediation kingdom at Solace is not for you guys to have to like figure everything out, or like talk offline or, any of that. The key is really for each person to center themselves. And that's something I think, I mean, I know you and I do this, and other people who are living this path do this, but I don't think a lot of people do that in their day to day. And so I coach them and teach them, you have all of the answers within yourself.
Yeah,
What you believe is in the best interest of your kids. And you also
that's
know what
huge.
you believe is fair and equitable for marital property. And so I coach them and tell them, go in nature. like go in nature and have all of those plants that are givers of energy, just give you so much energy. It helps quiet all of the noise around you and gets you to a space where you can, tune into your throat chakra, tune into your inner guidance and truth, and figure out what you believe is the best interest and what is fair and equitable. But then beyond that, I coach them and say, you also need to figure out why. You can't just figure out what it is. You have to figure out what are the emotional drivers that are driving you to that what. And so the space is really cultivated of empowering people to tune into their own authentic truth, because we are all love, inside. When we remove all the fears, when we remove all, especially
The
with divorce,
garbage.
anyone who's gone through a divorce is all of a sudden an expert. You should be doing this, or you should get that or that. It's like, go in nature, quiet all the noise around you, and just tune into yourself and just listen to your inner guidance, and bring a journal and write about it, and then come to the mediation space and share it. And that's, for me, it's so important to create a very sacred space that is very safe, and parties do feel that they can be really vulnerable, because a lot of times they're sharing truths that maybe they've never shared before, with their spouse, or even shared out loud. And so it's an amazing space to be part of, to witness people stepping into their own power and really figuring out who they are and what they think, removed from what everyone else thinks they should be doing, or, what it means to be a good wife or a good husband or good mom or good dad. It's like, no, we're not doing any of that, because each of them have a truth. And when the truth is shared in the space and they share why that is their truth, then we can reach agreements. Then from my standpoint as the mediator, the neutral, I can be up here and be like, okay, now I'm understanding what is driving each of them, and we can explore different solutions that might feel good to them.
I think it's almost silly to think that nobody had really been doing this early on, because the whole entire act of uncoupling, divorcing, even if you're not married, but then you move in with somebody, splitting resources, it's such a vulnerable thing to have to do. And depending on like your patterns and conditioning, which I will talk about a little bit later here, I think one party or the other might have a propensity to just like lay down and not advocate for themselves. So it makes sense, if you're going to have to do this vulnerable exercise, that you have a safe space to do it in. I mean,
Yes.
it seems really intuitive now, but like I'm glad that you're doing this, because I think it's a great example. I wanted to understand too, bringing in the element of children. There's something that you said about trying to protect children in the process of separation and minimizing negative effects. Like, how do you approach that when you have a couple come to you with children? And I guess it doesn't necessarily need to be, a bad situation, but how do
Yeah.
you, as a mediator and a litigator, think about protecting children? Because it is hard. I don't know any
Oh,
child of divorce that didn't have some wounding related to it as of this point. So I'm really
mhm.
curious how you approach this.
Like the majority of my clients are clients that have children. And
Yes.
that's exactly what they come in with. They're terrified that they're going to screw their kids up, that their kids are going to be, really impacted in a negative way. And I do believe that that is, again, that generations of time that people were using that court system, where
Yeah.
children were frequently, when I was a litigator, put in the middle and just kind of used as pawns. And it was really gross. And I really do think the reason for it is because there's so many emotions that are in both parties getting a divorce, and in the courtroom setting, they're just not equipped to deal with those. It's just
Yeah.
all legal, no emotion. In
Yes.
the
Hard agree on
mediation,
that one.
yeah, I mean, it's a whole different, in the solace mediation space, it's very intentional, So like I said, the soul of the practice is authenticity, but the heart of the practice is children. And
Mm,
so before
that's
we even
beautiful.
start with the mediation sessions, we set intentions. We set intentions for the mediation. What is your intention for being in this space? What are you hoping to get out of here that you didn't think you would get out of court? But the second intention is always focused on the kids, and if it's not even if, it's when both parents can connect and tune into their children, that's when the magic happens. And the truth of it is, all parents everywhere love their kids. We all, as parents, we want our kids to be happy and healthy and well-adjusted and living great lives. And we don't want to screw them up from our things, And so when I can connect them on the kids and share with them family, and shatter the whole kind of program when it comes to divorcing, and what that means for families. And at Solace, the narrative is very strong. You're always going to be a family, always. It's just going to be a different family. And just because it's going to be a different family doesn't mean that you still can't experience joyful times together and have fun together and have dinners together, go on vacations. It can be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be so black and white. And I also coach my clients, and this is something that I feel in our community, is known, or at least talked about, but our children choose us to be their parents,
Yes.
And so I coach my clients and tell them your children chose each of you to be their parents for all of the reasons that they did, and the way that we best serve those that are in our lives, especially in a family, is by being our most authentic self, because that's when we can mirror to them. That's where we can teach them different things because we're being our true self. And so I think the whole stigma, the previous stigma about divorce and it negatively impacting children, I think when divorce is done mindfully, it actually empowers children. I think it's a very empowering space for children to live in a family where both parents are living authentically. And the children are seeing that and they're feeling it. And they're watching their parents make really difficult decisions, go through a really difficult time, taking really good care of themselves, putting themselves first, which all of these principles are so powerful for children to be raised within, and I think divorce offers the space of parents being vulnerable with their children where they can say, yes, I am your mom, but I don't know everything. And this is the first time I'm going through this or whatever time. And it's a really difficult time and I'm doing my best, and bringing the kids into the conversation that their family is changing. It's not like a scary thing to talk
or
about.
a hidden secret.
Yeah, it's what's happening. And so bring them in. Kids can feel it anyway. They're so tuned into energy. They can feel it, but they don't understand it. And so I think,
and they're making up, if you don't bring them into the fold, they're going to start making up stories, right?
Totally.
About what is actually happening. And it's usually like fear-based.
And it's about them. I must have done something. I did. And it's like, no, it has nothing to do with you. So exactly. It's opening that space of having real conversations with our kids, and not having it be like parents here, children should be seen and not heard. It's like, no, we can be like this. We're both learning from each other. We're both growing with each other. And children are autonomous beings just like adults are, and so I think it can be a really empowering, beautiful space. And then bringing in more people into the family with significant others and just everything being very intentional and mindful. I think children, that grow up in those families, I think it's amazing for them to see that, and actually see it in practice, and with their parents who they love more than anything.
Yeah. Well, and I would imagine as a child, you wouldn't have these words yet, but watching your parents conflict resolve would be like really big. And then also like watching them work together and being very transparent and communicative. I feel like neither of those things are bad things in any situation, but something like this that is, I think, very high stakes in general. Like, I think when you decide to, divorce, it's nobody should go through that without any level of some intention or consciousness about it. So it's like, it makes sense that you would want to bring them in the fold, and protect them as much as you could as a parent, whether that's emotionally, psychologically. And I'm sure you're also working through those kinds of things with parents. And I agree with you. I think we all choose our families, and it's funny to think that as an adult, right? Because then you look back at your family system and you're like, why did I do that?
Right. Why did I do that?
What was? but we become who we are, I think, usually in response to those familial systems. So it
Totally.
all works out eventually, I
It,
feel like.
it does. And that's the thing, like even the really hard, hard things in childhood, they're all for the individual's sole purpose,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
growth,
Yeah.
and it's all beautiful. I mean, that's the other thing I really coach my clients on. It's like life is so beautiful. It's so magical if you so choose
Hmm.
it to be. It's whatever you believe. If you believe it's magical, it's magical. If you believe it's mundane and it's hard and,
Hmm.
then that's what it is. It's like, what type of life experience do you want? An
Hmm.
abundant, amazing one where even all the hard times are really just fuel for you. Those
Hmm.
dark times, that's when we're growing. I mean, and
Yeah.
it's so hard as a human, but it's like, that's when we grow, when we go through those really dark times. That's when
Hmm.
we are really forced to figure out, like, who am I and what do I want? And then looking
Hmm.
at every area and being empowered to say, okay, this isn't serving me. This I need to
Right.
let go of. And, and knowing and trusting that when you're letting go of things that aren't serving, you're just bringing in, you have more room to bring in all that does, and
Hmm.
it's such an amazing space. Like, I just think I love weddings, so I want to make that, like, weddings are my favorite social event. And I love love, and I love marriage. I love all the things when they're working. But I just think divorce, I just think it's totally opposite from what it's been, and I think that the time is now for it to change because we don't need it to be so heavy. Like, life is
Yeah, and we're not
fun.
static beings. I mean, and again, a lot of that is culturally embedded with Western religion that says
Mhm.
two people, man and woman, together forever,
Right.
until you die. And we're just not. Like, we are literally like embedded in our DNA. Our human DNA are meant to evolve. And then if you take a spiritual slant on this and you think about, or even if you're religious, God, consciousness, the universe has existed over millennia, and
Mhm.
none of it has stayed the same.
Mhm.
So to have that expectation on relationships, on yourself, on your who you are as an individual is so heavy. And I
Yeah.
think when you can embrace the idea of change and evolution within yourself, and to your point back there, talking about like when we encounter hard things, we
Mhm.
can alchemize them and strengthen ourselves. And it is not positive bypass, which I am a huge opponent against. I don't want to like make everything rainbows and
No,
sunshines, because it's not.
it's not. Right.
But if you embrace the suffering and the hardness and the challenges, you
Mhm.
come out a different iteration of yourself, and usually for the better. So I think before I understood this principle for myself, I always, felt like I was agitating against life and life
Mhm.
experiences. And once you said it back there too, is like, once you accept what is, like
Mhm.
what is in this moment, you, me, here in this moment, we can't change anything except for what's in front of us, and how we react to what's coming next changes everything, and it changes us indefinitely.
Totally. Yes. That is
Yeah.
exactly, yes. And change is the one constant of life. It's like, and that's exactly what I coach my clients on, exactly what you were just talking about, like helping them just see things a little differently. That
Hmm.
can be
Yeah, that
empowering.
minor nuance is everything.
Yes. And the only way out is through. That's the message
Yes.
I always coach them on too. The only way out is through. Like, if
Yes.
people could, numb themselves with alcohol or drugs or,
And they
getting into
try.
work and they try, but at Solace, I really encourage them, like, the only way out is through. And I have two handbooks. I have a legal handbook and an emotional handbook. And the emotional handbook has all of these different amazing, I think,
Tools. Yeah.
practices. Yeah, like different meditations and breath work and self-care and self-love practices and books they could read just to expand their consciousness, just
Hmm.
to open them up to this different way of living and remove any of that heaviness that they're feeling about what they're doing, because they're following their inner guidance. That's exactly what we're here to do. We each have our own life purpose, that we're supposed to share with the world, And we can't. Change is the one constant in life. We can't, I don't, I think it stifles our life purpose when we feel like we have to do anything or stay in anything that isn't serving.
Yes, 1,000%. Yeah. Well, I have a few more questions here I want to get into with you. I think when we're talking about removing the stigma, we're talking about cultural influences, familial lineages, family trauma, family mores that we all pass on to each other. One of the things I was interested in that you address as well is like the patterning and conditioning we're bringing into our relationships before we ever get to the place of saying like, this isn't going to work out and that we need to like decouple and this marriage is over. How do you see having people take a conscious approach to understanding their own patterning? I'll say for myself here that, and we talked about it offline, I was very indoctrinated. I had a very specific plan laid out for me. I followed it to the T and was absolutely miserable. And one day realized it wasn't what I wanted. And so I had to also look at my own patterning in my family system, in my church system, and through society as well. Like all of those areas needed to have a little bit of light shined on them. And then I had to have this kind of like reconciliation of sorts within myself to understand, like, is this me or is it them? Kind of like what you said back there. So how are you helping address that stuff? Because it's so big, it's so heavy, it's layered, it's complicated. It's sometimes out of our own, our literal conscious sight. So I'm really curious how you deal with that.
Yeah, no. And it's so interesting because this is always part of the conversation in the initial consultation. So like when someone first reaches out and is thinking about divorce and we meet via Zoom or phone for half an hour to talk about things, that's where this conversation is typically held, because a lot of times people are reaching out and they're talking about divorce and I can feel their energy. They're like so stressed out about it and they're still, debating, is this really what I'm thinking? And is this really where I'm going? And that is exactly the space of asking, and listening first.
Like, how did you get here?
Yes. And that, what's so funny that when I shared we do intentions before the mediation, the first question that I ask that they share is that, how did you get here?
Wow.
How did you get here? Each of you sharing your own version of the story. And that's where it happens.
How smart. That's so smart to do.
Because I want to understand the dynamic. So energetically, I can understand what's going on and I can steer them clear of any like pitfalls. But it is so frequently shared that it's basic. I'm trying to put it into words, but it's where one of them feels, or both of them, but it's usually just one. And it's interesting. It's typically the feminine energy feels that she was living this life. She was doing all of the things that the wife does. She was being a mom and she was doing this and doing that and doing all of these things. And then she came to a point one day where she was like, why am I doing this? Like, this isn't, I want something different. And that's where the lineage conversations come in then, where it's like, okay, well, I want you as homework. I really want you to think about, what were you modeled as a child? What was your mother like, or your father or your aunts or anyone who was in your life? What were they like? And how did they navigate life? Because our belief systems are created by the ages of 7 to 9 years old.
Yeah.
Because we're in this whole theta brainwave state, when we're born until then. And so we're essentially we're just absorbing like sponges. We're just taking all the narratives in and taking the ways of being, everything that we're seeing. And there are these deep-seated belief systems that you have talked about. I mean, that's how people then see the world. That's how they navigate their life. Every bit of information that comes in is filtered through those belief systems. And then that is the experience. And I think that more and more people, especially lately, I think there's a major shift happening in our consciousness, but lately, especially, more and more people are like, wait a minute, I've been living this way and I've been doing all the things, just like what you just said. I've been doing all of the things right, the way that I'm supposed to do them to be a good wife and a good mom or a good dad. good husband and be in this marriage, but I'm
I
not,
actually hate those words
I
now.
can't,
Like the dichotomy of good and bad. I just can't. I'm like,
I
stop
know.
it, guys.
I say it over and over again. There's no good, there's no bad, there's no right, there's no wrong. It just is what it is. And whatever
Hmm.
way it is amazing and beautiful. Like it's just, let's let go of all of that, And I
Hmm.
do feel that
And it's
there's,
so pressurizing.
it is. And it's just so tight. It's just so
Yeah.
tight. It feels so tight to me. It's like people living within these little boxes and cages with all these appropriate labels, and that they want everyone to view them as too. And it's like, why are we doing any of this? Like,
I
why are
know.
we
Or
just
like that we're living our lives on behalf of our lineage's intentions, which is not for us.
totally, totally. Yes. Really, the root of the work that I do at Salis
Mm.
and that I coach my clients in is we're healing. That's what we're doing. We're
Hmm.
healing. We're not just healing from the experiences and traumas of this relationship, we're healing
Right.
from all of the things.
Because it's a
It's just,
culmination.
yes, it's all beautiful and it's all here. And that's, I mean, there's so many things I love about divorce, obviously, because I keep saying, oh, this is what I love about divorce. But another part of that I love about it is that it is really, it's like Pandora's box.
Hmm.
I feel going through my own divorce and just, I mean, I've guided like over 500 couples now through this, and I can feel it. It's this Pandora's box where it's
A
not just the
purging.
relationship,
Yeah.
it's all of the other things that haven't
Hmm.
been healed yet that are coming up for people to heal, and I feel like once they're given the tools, and the resources to do that work, it can be so empowering because
Hmm.
then you truly are on the path of living your unique life path and purpose and living free and not having those lineage ways of being, so the social consciousness
Yeah.
systems that are here.
Just
But
having
yeah,
agency alone is everything.
yes, and just even knowing that, I feel like a lot of people don't even know that, that
Yes.
because there's no way unless they go to like your podcast or other spaces that are talking about this, but it isn't mainstream yet. The mainstream is real heavy and
Hmm.
it's
And the
real
energy is heavy. The
oh,
consciousness there is very heavy.
so much fear,
So
and
much fear.
that's the shift, I think. And you said that earlier about the feminine. I do feel like we're shifting into a space
Hmm.
where the divine feminine is going to
Oh,
be the dominant.
she's waking up, man, and it's
She's
gonna be
ready. I mean, look at
beautiful.
us talking. And you know
I
what I
know.
mean? It's like, and it's happening everywhere.
It
It's like,
is.
and the divine feminine, I'm not saying like the masculine is bad and the feminine is good.
Correct.
There is no good, bad, right, or wrong. They're
And
just,
we need the feminine and the masculine to wake up as
we
well.
need, yeah. And the masculine needs to be given that space, I think, to heal and to figure out, okay, the feminine is real strong. What are we now? And that
Hmm.
this is coming up a ton in my divorce journeys right now. It's like the masculine, I feel like we need to give a space for the masculine to heal and to have
Yes.
that open too. There's no stigma for you taking a salt bath, or doing a guided meditation or some breath
And
work.
please do.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you're not masculine. It means you're not a wounded masculine anymore. Now you're shifting into divine masculine, and I feel
Hmm.
like that shift of the divine feminine that leads with her heart, that's looking out for the collective as a whole,
I know
that
that's what's the biggest difference. I mean, I think like it's not about pitting us against each other because that is masculine energy. The feminine and the divine feminine is about the collective and about the idea of caring about other people, even if it doesn't affect you, which I think is something we see in our Western culture, that there's so many people that are left aside because the masculine says like they're not productive, they don't
Mhm,
give society meaning, and
mhm,
like what are these creatives and artists and spiritual people and women with intuition and men who want to be to reject the toxic masculinity that exists in
mhm.
our system, like they immediately void those people out. And
Yes,
the divine feminine is saying, no, wait a second.
we're saying we can all love each other. We can
Yeah,
do it
we
differently.
and we need each other,
We
like we
need each
need each
other and
other.
we're all connected. And
Hmm.
just because we've outgrown these systems that
Exactly.
do not work anymore, like the legal system doesn't work, and everyone knows that. Like anyone who goes
I know.
through, It's
How come that is not evolving? That's what I want to know.
it's so goofy. It's like anyone who goes into court for divorce, like my area, right? Anyone who uses the court system to get a divorce, they all will have the same story. It was
Right.
awful. It took so
It's
much time,
antiquated. Mm-hmm.
years, and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. They hate their spouse. It's like the same story over and over and over again. And I feel like where we're at now is that people are waking up to recognize, well, wait a minute, just because that's the way it's always been doesn't mean that we need to continue to do it. Doesn't mean I need to do it that way, or
Yeah.
we as a consciousness, we can do better. We can do it
Mm-hmm.
differently. And I think that's where the real kind of juicy everything is right now, is that there's so much change. Every system I feel is broken. So there's
Mm-hmm.
so many opportunities to create just new ways of doing things that do
Yes.
benefit the whole, that connects people to themselves, to one another, to the
Mm-hmm.
plants, to the earth, to the universe. You know what I mean? It's like
Yes.
we can do this. And I feel like the consciousness is at a space where they're ready to do that. I feel like people are just like so hungry to learn what we're talking about, and in my mediation sessions, I can feel it, and I can see it in their ways of being, in the language
Mm-hmm.
that they're using. It will shift. And it's like, well, amazing. Like that's your whole life is going to be different now. If you can switch your way of looking at hard times to see, okay, yes, this is a hard time, but it's one of the greatest opportunities you're going to be given to grow, then let's grow. Let's just keep changing and evolving and growing and figuring out who we are and what we want, and doing that and making these changes in this world that are
Mm-hmm.
amazing for everyone, and the beautiful part is the younger generations, they're already there. They
Yeah.
already live in this space that we're talking about. That's why they see the systems and they're like, what? Why are we doing
Yeah.
this? Like, nine
Yeah.
to five, Monday through Friday? Like, what is that? The magical unicorn hours? Like, what if I don't want to work on a Tuesday, but I want to work on Sunday? It's just like, yeah, it's exciting. It's an exciting time right now.
Yeah, I love watching the systems dismantle and be recreated. There's so much that needs to be rebirthed, and I think to your point as well, like we have to have a more collaborative approach to this life because that's what makes the most sense. We're kind of getting towards the end here, but I just wanted to ask some like technical questions about like someone wants to work with you, but they don't live in the state where you where you have your licensure and all of those
Yes.
things. Can anyone around the world work with you? That's my first question.
Yes. So as a mediator, I'm licensed as an attorney in Illinois, but as a mediator, I can
Okay.
mediate anywhere. So they absolutely, I can mediate any divorce anywhere. And I also have a master class that is sharing 18 years of legal experience, but it's sharing everything that we've been talking about today, but it just is more in depth. It's 3
Detailed.
hours
Hmm.
and 39 minutes, which I love those numbers, 339. But it's amazing. And it talks about the legal process of divorce, the emotional process of divorce, and that can apply to anyone, anywhere. And it will give them the tools and the information that they need to make the choices that are going to best serve them and their family. So I'm really excited
Beautiful.
about that.
Yeah, I'm glad that they can work with you in any perspective. I know
Yeah.
that this work is very necessary, so I'm glad that you can reach people in other areas. So, where do you hang out on social media? What things do you have coming up in the next 6 months? This episode will be airing in October, early October. So,
Oh, wonderful.
and anything that will be happening during that time space and thereafter that might be important for people who want to follow you and get to know you better.
Yes, thank you. So I'm learning more about social media. You said you're 44. I'm 47, but I have a 13-year-old who I've hired now who's my social media person. So
Nice.
I post a lot on Facebook. So Solace Divorce, my practice is called Solace Divorce Mediation. So
Mhm.
that's on Facebook. We have Instagram. I'm starting to dabble into TikTok, which is becoming really fun. And then, yeah, I'm just going to start speaking at different events as well. There's a national mediation conference coming up in November that I'm going to speak at. And I'm just planning on getting very, very vocal about this. I feel like for the last 9 years, I've been figuring this new way to divorce out. And now I feel she being Solace, she is complete and ready to share
Yeah.
with the world. And my intention is to have her global. So anyone, anywhere going through a divorce can have the opportunity to divorce with love and mindfulness and compassion and gratitude and all of the things.
Yes, all of the things we need to be collaborative and kind to one another in these spaces. So I always wrap up, I always check in with my guest about what the 3 things they're grateful for in this moment, this week, this year, and leave us on a high note as we end this conversation.
Oh, beautiful. I practice gratitude every morning and every evening. So I'm very grateful to be here speaking with you because we were meant to talk a couple months ago and my dad passed, so we weren't able to. And I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to share with someone who understands the language and understands the work. It's just a really beautiful space. So that is something I'm very grateful for. I guess one thing that's coming strongly to me, I'm very grateful that all 3 of my kids are in school today. It's the first day that they're all in school. It's been a very amazing summer. We went to Europe and we took a 2-week trip to Chicago, Wisconsin. It's been amazing, but they're all in school. So I'm very grateful for that. And the third thing I'm grateful for is I'm just grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to be at the space that I'm at where I am so deeply committed to my spiritual journey and path. And I have absolute faith and trust that the universe is always providing for me and that my angels, masters, guides, ancestors are always looking out for me. And that, when I communicate, that I'm really just fueling the messaging from the ether. So I'm grateful for that as well.
Yeah, those are all very beautiful. Well, I'm really glad we did get to finally connect. And in the vein of our It Is What It Is, I think we connected at just the right time.
Yeah, it always works out that way. Totally.
Yeah, so I didn't have any worry about it. And I knew you'd get here eventually. And I'm glad that we were able to connect because I really resonated with your work. And I felt its importance the moment you got pitched to me, and I really wanted to be able to provide you some space to tell more people, what this is and how it can be different. Because like we said at the top of the interview, like divorce is still, it's such a gross idea for so many people, and it doesn't have to be like that. And if we can remove that shame, like you said, and all the other stigmas, that would be really beautiful.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. And thank you for the work that you're doing and providing a platform that people can come and listen to all of this, and you're changing people's lives and doing the work that you're doing. It's truly amazing.
Thanks, Jen.
This podcast was written, directed, and produced by me, your host, Krista Ziomata, in alignment with Light Casting. Music curated and created by Mr. Pixie. You can find I'm Awake Now What on all social media channels by searching IANW Podcast. Head over to your favorite podcast app and subscribe, download, rate, and review. Come back every Sunday to partake in a new and enlightening conversation. May you be filled with love and light until we meet again.